Welcome back, everyone. Today I want to talk about how I built a better half ton in a lot of ways than anything you can get nowadays. This video is going to focus on the positives. There is going to be a sister video to this of some of the negatives of what I have done, but we'll talk about that in that video. I just want to point that out right off the bat so you don't think this is a propaganda shoot, for this truck. So anyway, what we've got here, and I've talked a little bit about this truck on my channel, but I want to kind of do a summary video, is a 6-liter LQ9 powered Silverado 1500. Now this from the factory originally came with a 5.3. Obviously the 5.3, super good motor. It lasted 222,000 miles and then it had some issues. I decided instead of fixing it to replace it with an LQ9. You can see that 317 head. That's how you know it's a 6.0. And I decided to replace it. And in doing that, previous to the engine actually, I had the 4L60 transmission built in this truck by a company called Level 10 Transmission in New Jersey. They made it heavier duty and reinforced it. Kind of, I knew in the future I might do some power upgrades and stuff. So the transmission should hold the 6.0 pretty well. That I haven't really had issues with for the most part, so far anyway. And what else makes this kind of a better or equivalent half ton to something of today? So the biggest issue with these trucks, in my opinion, for the mid 2000s, is they had, the Chevy specifically, they had pretty small brakes, okay? And then they also had drums in the rear on a lot of them. Some of them had discs, but this one had drums. So unfortunately, braking is one of the aspects that you just don't have equivalent performance to a newer truck. So what do we do about that, right? Well, the best thing you can do on a budget is just throw some type of kind of drilled and slotted rotor, or just some type of higher end, rotor and pad. These are power stops on there. They work pretty good. I towed my camper all over the place with this thing, and braking was actually never an issue. Honestly, doing a disc brake conversion would be pretty awesome in the back. You can do 2019 up front rotors and calipers with some kind of small modifications of the knuckle. I know that that's a thing people do. That would really make these trucks stop super well. The other big disadvantage though, and this is a little bit harder to solve, is the 10-bolt rear end. And that you would really have to swap out if you wanted to make it much heavier duty, in my opinion. You could put like hardened gears and stuff like that in, but the actual axle, tube housings themselves are gonna kind of bow under load and stuff like that. So there's only so much you can do there. But what I did, I just had a stock rebuild on it. It had been pretty good, and I didn't really have too many issues with it towing and stuff. So it did blow at 180-something thousand miles, but once I rebuilt it, it was fine. Unfortunately, they actually screwed the rebuild up slightly, but that's, again, kind of another topic. So the other thing is, as far as, towing performance, especially on an older truck, I threw an Add-A-Leaf in there. Now, they're old and they're crusty now, but if you look, there's an extra leaf down here that wouldn't have been there from the factory. And that was one of the best things I ever did. They were like 60 bucks. They were dirt cheap. It gave this thing kind of a little tiny bit more rake, but I didn't care. And if you get on the back of this thing and jump on it, it's pretty stiff. You can really haul a 400 or 500 pound tongue weight trailer and not just send this truck to the bump stops, which a lot of even modern half tons don't do so well with the tongue weight. They really require a weight distribution hitch to keep the truck level. And although I still ran one with the camper, and I would recommend that for something like this, especially because of the, weaker rear frame section compared to like a new half ton, it will still help a lot also having the Add-A-Leaf. Speaking of the weaker rear frame section, the other weak thing on a GMT 800 is the hitch. So I put a Kurt, I don't know, whatever these are rated for, class 4, class 5. It's way overkill for this truck, 10,000 pounds. Yeah, you shouldn't be towing 10,000 pounds behind this half ton. But that hitch is plenty strong enough for this. It is so much thicker steel. I swear this hitch is literally like 40-50% heavier than the GMT 800 stock hitch. Nice thick steel. So that hitch, what also that hitch does is it takes your kind of thinner frame rails, your C-channel frame. I don't know if you can even see it up in there, but it just kind of helps reinforce it a little bit, by not putting as much stress. As that hitch bends, and GMT 800 hitches bend over time, it puts a pinch point on the front of that where it connects to the frame. Whereas if this stays a little straighter, little bit less of a pinch point. You know, we're kind of splitting hairs here, but something to consider. So, you know, we kind of reinforced the drivetrain a decent amount. We'll talk in the other video about how some of that stuff actually became a problem, but it is still better than stock, right? And then as far as like anything else, stock cooling on these things, the stock radiator is shockingly good. I mean, I have the electric fans in this model, and I actually had a fan go out one time. I mean, it still kept it cool while towing my trailer in the middle of summer. So that's actually not a problem. I did add the trans cooler. This is a True Cool 40K. Huge improvement on trans temps. Incredibly critical for a 4L60 to keep the thing cool, to keep it alive. If you don't do that, you'll probably blow up your brand new 4L60 every time you get it rebuilt if you're towing and hauling. And that was the number one weakness of these things. As much as the 4L60 is a car transmission, and it should never have been in a truck in my opinion, you can greatly help your chances by just putting a cooler on it and keeping it below, you know, 200, 210 or so. So, you know, as far as like interior and stuff, well, because it's an older truck, I was able to kind of get a nice loaded interior, and having the leather heated seats, you know, this stuff's all held up nice and is just nice and comfy and good for road trips. The interior on these trucks are really comfortable. The seats are really comfortable. The only thing I did kind of screw up where I made this not as much of a better half ton is I put a pretty loud exhaust on it when I was younger. I could obviously change that, and I might actually at some point, but it sounds great. But she talks to you when you're towing. And with the 4-speed transmission, that's the one other thing, right? Is, you know, when you have a 4-speed transmission, you are always going to struggle a little bit while towing. So unfortunately, you're going to be rock and rolling third gear with a trailer, okay? Anything heavier, right? You're going to be at about, in this case with 342s, 30-some hundred RPM, which is a pretty happy spot for a 6.0. It honestly likes RPM, so that's almost a little low sometimes, but that'll move a pretty good sized trailer. But then you go into second and you're cranking like 4,500. You have all the power in the world, but that's a lot of RPMs to be sustaining. So it can definitely be annoying from that perspective. Well, let's listen to that 6.0 purr. I mean, she does sound good. It's got that deep, low, like baritone boat sound almost, which I do like. But that gets loud when you're driving, you know, 800 miles in a rip towing something, you know, that kind of thing. So this is an option, guys. Oh, by the way, this thing's got 250, almost 7,000 on it. So like if you're looking at, here's the thing, here's what it comes down to, okay? This truck will never perform like a modern half ton. Don't even make it try. You could swap the rear end with a 12 bolt or a 14 bolt semi-floater or something like that from a newer truck or from a 1500 HD back in the day. You could build the transmission to, you know, as much as you want, or swap a 4L80 and all that kind of stuff. And that's great. And that would actually take it to the next level, but you're not gonna make the frame stronger, really. I mean, yeah, I guess you could weld in and create a box frame out of the C-channel frame. That's a lot of work though, and you're gonna be taking the whole truck apart. At that point, it's like just buy a 2500. I think that would be the takeaway of this. I made a better half ton out of this, and I made something that's sort of in some ways comparable to a modern half ton, but it just does fall short in certain ways, you know, that are important enough that we gotta, you know, recognize that. So anyway, these are some of the things you can do. And if you're towing a lighter trailer and you're not towing as far, all of what I just said would be super helpful advice. If you're towing 2,000-3,000 pounds, some of these mods would make that an awesome towing experience. You're not going to be killing the truck. It can handle that. It's just that 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 pounds where these things start to struggle if you're going to go long distance. If you're towing an hour to your favorite local campsite and that's all you do out, you know, a couple times a year, then this is a perfectly good truck for that. It's all a matter of frequency, distance, weight, heat, all that kind of thing. So with that being said, if you think this is a better, you know, half ton than something modern for, you know, not necessarily total performance, but just the overall package a little simpler, let me know in the comments. If you think I'm crazy and it's worse, also let me know in the comments. But, you know, keep in mind, we don't have variable valve timing. We don't have cam phasers. We don't have lifter issues, you know, all that kind of stuff, right? So as always, guys, thanks for watching. God bless America, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.